Hello everyone and welcome to the Dice Commando YouTube channel. I'm Andrew with you here as always. This is the Commando Cast, a video cast about all things Star Wars Destiny. This video and others like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. Please show your support with a like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell notification icon so you don't miss any new videos. If you want to get involved with the channel, consider becoming a channel member. There are many benefits to channel membership, including access to our Discord, exclusive deck tech and strategy videos, and the opportunity to help create channel content. I want to sincerely thank all our channel members, as I truly couldn't do this without your support. You guys rock. Go Commando. Hello everyone, welcome to Dice Commando and the Commando Cast. I'm Andrew with you here as always. So it has been just about 24 hours since release of the transformation set to the wild, which kind of took all of us off guard. So I had done a very quick episode yesterday, kind of gave my real quick first pass impressions. I got a lot of stuff wrong. Having the time to, actually sit and read the cards, think about how it works. Furthermore, having great discussions with the Team Commando gents on our Discord and some of the Dice Failure guys with our normal Best Frenemies chat. Plus just seeing what else is out there. We've got a really good picture now. It's a much better picture, at least, of what's going on. So that's what I want to do today. I'm actually prepared. I've got slides. I've got ideas, I've got notes, I've got a beer. So let's sit down for a long episode as we just go through this nice and casual, one by one, talk thoughts as we go, and let's look at this transition set. Alright guys, so welcome to episode 103. Just a reminder, yes, we did skip episode 101. It is still coming. It's going to be planned for the normal schedule. The reason I'm sticking to that normal schedule is because I have gameplay videos that come after it. And even though a lot of that stuff's been kind of jumbled around with the surprise we got this week, I still think it's a really cool little series we've got coming. So thank you for sticking with us through that. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends. Get it centered here. Oh, you can't see it. There we go. Our friends at Bunsen Brewer. I'm drinking their Verbeek double IPA. Still doing, to support the small local businesses. They're still doing home deliveries to try to keep alive during this. So thank you, Sean, and thank you, Bunsen Brewer, for being who you are. So, all right. So what I have, what you're seeing as of right now, you should be seeing kind of the slides-ish that I have going on. I've just kind of got them tied in because it makes it a little easier that way from the home office stream. I figured it would be easier to just do it this way today since we have a lot of images to go up, and we're just kind of going through this and talking casual. So real quick, one thing I want to talk about outside of just the cards from the set is with the Holocron updates yesterday, I have seen this item that I'm showing right now quite a bit. A lot of people have been saying, Andrew, you're wrong. Trandos are not still a viable deck because the Trando Death Troopers are not still a viable deck because Trandos are on the restricted list. And that's not true, right? So everyone knows that if a card's on the restricted list, you can play 2 copies of that card in your deck. You just can't play it with other copies of the restricted list, right? Perfect example being Hidden Motive and Desperate Measures. You can play 2 Hidden Motives in your deck. You can play 2 Desperate Measures in your deck, but you can't play the 2 together. And that is the way that Trandoshan works. I'm a little surprised there's the confusion on this because Rebel Trader's been on there for a long time, and nobody has nobody's ever not think that you couldn't play 2 Rebel Traders on the team. In fact, that's been flying around out there. Anyway, but point is, right, just bring this home, right? Restricted list reads, a player may select 1 card from this list for their deck and cannot include any other restricted cards. That part we understand, but a player may run as many of those copies of restricted cards as the rules or text allows. So Trandoshan's definitely still a deck, definitely still viable out there. That's a real thing. I'm really surprised not to see it on there. So let's go ahead and go into this. So not only do I want to I'm just going to go through the cards one by one, top down, but I've also made some notes and some pairings that I want to talk about as we go. So we'll obviously end up spending more time on some guys than others. But that's the way it goes. Okay, so let's go first, just before we get into this, let's recap kind of the idea behind this, right? Because a lot of the stuff we're talking about actually does tie into these rules. Because surprisingly, some of these are actually pretty technical stuff with the way that they work. So, the big ones I want to hit on is when a card in play flips, it's not considered to have left play. All cards and tokens on it remain, and its state does not change. Okay, so that's fine. The state does not change, right? So that means that if it's exhausted, it stays exhausted. When a card in play flips, set aside each of its parallel dice, right? That's very relevant. You know what? Let's just skip to the chase and kind of get to where I'm going here, and we can come back to the rules in a second. So Anakin Reckless 1. This is really where I was going with some of those rules. So after you activate this character, deal 1 damage to him and 2 damage to another character. Then, if that character was defeated, flip this character, right? So aside from what's going on here, right? The die's pretty good for 15 points. His health's not great for 15 points. But as far as the flipping goes, that's the big thing with Anakin that I think everyone didn't wrap their head around right away, or at least I didn't right away. I'm sure other people got there, but that's kind of been the conversation over the last 24 hours. So the way this works is the then, right, because it's a then flip, that means that you have to activate him and kill to get the flip. The problem is, right, let's scroll up now to this. I think you can see my cursor. Yes, you can, right? So when a card in play with parallel die flips, set aside each of its parallel dice. So what that means is when Anakin flips in, deals the 2 damage to kill, he's exhausted, his dice get removed, and the 2 Vader dice, upon flipping, get placed on Vader now. So you basically lose a turn with Anakin. Which is, I think we had a fair amount of conversation with, and shout out to my Dice of Failure guys for kind of having this conversation, because some of them didn't think it was that big of a deal. Myself and one of the gentlemen also did think it was a big deal, so we were kind of split on it, going back and forth, and it was a good conversation, right? I'm not convinced that I'm right and they're wrong, or vice versa. But Destiny, most of the games are decided. It doesn't necessarily mean the games are over in 3 rounds, but most of the games are decided within 3 rounds. So basically with this guy, a lot of the talk on the Facebook pages with him have been pairing him with Youngling, which is admittedly pretty dark as it is, right? But the idea is, so you pair him with, the proposals I've heard out there is Ahsoka and Youngling. And then what you do is you roll an Ahsoka, you hit her +2, then you roll an Anakin who's a Jedi, which allows the proc of the +2, plus then you deal the 2 damage to the Youngling, and then take the 1 on Anakin, and pop, and you flip Vader, and then you're doing that first round. Which is awesome, except that you've just dealt 5 damage to yourself. And probably didn't proc the Youngling, because if you're out there, anybody who's smart is going to put the damage into the Youngling, so you can't get him flipped, because Vader's great. So I guess that's my issue. And then don't forget, let's go ahead and we'll go to Vader here. He's not a Jedi. So then once you do that, Vader doesn't proc Ahsoka, right? So that's just the rules notes here, right? So Anakin's flip is a then. This means that he's activated, his dice removed, Vader's dice are placed on the card, and you effectively lose an activation. So I am not convinced. I thought this one was really neat. I'm not convinced it's that good. Let's be clear. I'm not saying that it's even a design miss, because if you go look at Vader, he's amazing, right? Power action, remove all shields from a character or resolve one of your dice as melee, increasing its value by 1. If an opponent has defeated a character, you may do both in any order, right? If you're going down the path where you have flipped, because remember, you can start with this guy and play, but my point is, if you've gone down the path where you flipped him, they have, well, actually, I guess they don't, because we were just talking about Youngling, but, so that's actually fair, right? But the point is, this power action's so amazing. Just remove all shields from your character. The power action's amazing. Vader's amazing. So I guess it's kind of a check and balance, I suppose, to get him for 15 points. I grant you that, but it seems like an awful big ask to just kind of time walk a turn. So I guess that's my take on both Anakin and Vader as it stands. Furthermore, after some other discussions on Vader, just talking to various people, I think a lot of people forgot in the last 24 hours, just because of the possibilities of what could happen here. I think a lot of people forgot that you cannot resolve a modifier, right? And specifically, this was in reference to Vader Saber. I've heard multiple different people say, "Oh, we can get Vader Saber on him, and that's great." No, it's not, because what you're doing is you're resolving that die as if it's showing melee. The problem is a modifier is still a modifier, right? So you can't resolve a modified die, right? The bet, or one of the more effective moves with Vader, is like Hired Muscle, for example, is fantastic, because then you can turn a 3 disrupt that has into a 3 melee. That's really more of the ideal play here. But Vader Saber does not work, right? The Maul Saber stuff doesn't work. Any modified does not work. And then somebody at some point, I forget who it was, they had said, well, just bring Legacy is the one that lets you resolve a modifier, but you can't because it's power action. So you can't, right? Anyway, so that's the big takeaway with these guys is the interaction of having Anakin's dice removed when he's flipped. Maybe that was intended, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but that is the way it plays, at least with the way the rules are. So that should be comprehended. All right, so let's move on here. And this is one of the things that I got wrong yesterday, and I do apologize for that. The team up 1 only applies to the guys who are listed. In talking yesterday, I had counted Luke as one of the pieces of math there. So you can still get a 4 dice start. Well, actually, no, you can't, because one of the other things I missed yesterday was that one we'll get to in a second, but Obi-Wan does not have a die. I missed that in my head. So, I understood he didn't have a die. Just when I was doing the math, I missed it. So, point is, with him and Yoda, you can still, because it's 9, 12, plus 9, plus 10, minus 2, so that allows. But it's, that's basically all in on Luke. And so, after looking at Luke in detail, it's really, after the upkeep phase begins, if this character has 3 or more shields and 3 or more blue upgrades with dice, you may spend 2 resources to flip him. And this is probably the hardest flip we've seen, because, first let's start with the second part, which is the upgrades. It specifically says upgrades with dice, right? So it's not, 2 Aquata Breathers and a Padawan Braid. Like, it doesn't work that way, or 2 Knighthoods, or whatever it may be, right? It doesn't work that way. Like, they have to have dice, so you're inherently looking at either claiming a resource and somehow having an amazing draw hand, or at least doing this round 2. And that's restrictive, and that's the first part. The hardest part, in my opinion, is the 3 or more shields part, because it's in upkeep phase, which means it's after the round ends. So even if for some reason you can play your opponent into, because they're going to keep hitting him, right? They don't even need to kill the guy. They just need to keep him off 3 shields, which is way easier to do than killing the guy, right? So that means you have to kind of get in this weird space where, like, you have to get him out of cards and have the shields. And I do still think that my Yoda proposal yesterday with Jedi Trials, which is the training one I was trying to think of, but that doesn't work. But I do still think him with Big Yoda is not horrible, because you can use the shields to block, but it doesn't help get the shields on him necessarily. But at least you can block from a different character, so maybe that's the easy way to do this. I don't know. But then again, even after that's done, at upkeep you still have to have 2 resources. So, like, this guy's an impossible flip. That said, who he flips into is #Amazeballs, right? I'm very easy. I'm very okay saying this. Luke is the best card in the set. 1720, I really screw the whole flip thing. Like, I'm just going to play this guy on his own. Like, him and Satine looks amazing, right? That's an even 30 with money generation. It helps him get the blue upgrades he needs. He's your tank. The power action on him is the real win. Let's be clear. I mean, granted, there's some bias here because I played OG Luke from like day I got him. I actually made an eBay purchase to get the second Luke that I needed. Right, like that's who I wanted to play in the day. So yes, there's some bias here. I grant you. But I will tell you from experience that one focus is awful on a 20-point character. Like, it's really bad. But Satine brings focus to the table, and his power action alone is amazing. I mean, the guy gains two, in today's day and age, the guy gains 2 effective health per turn, right? That was a problem back in Awakenings with Vibro Knife. Like, it didn't matter. Shields were irrelevant. 2 shields matter these days. That's a big deal. I don't even necessarily care about being able to do both of them if you get the upgrades on him. It's good having kind of the pseudo built-in riposte, but his 2 health, his whatever. I'm happy dying on the hill saying that Luke is the best character in the set. He's amazing. I'm really looking forward to doing some stuff with him. It's kind of a bummer that he's not. Well, it's probably not because it'd be broken. But like, could you imagine if he was 19 and you could play Wookiee Tribe Wookiee Tribe, the Kashyyyk Warrior. There we go. I just call him Wookiee, right? The Kashyyyk Warrior Tribe. Like, if you could get that off, that would be beyond broken, probably, right? I mean, whatever. I love Luke. This is great. I look forward to playing him a lot. I'm not trying to cut off and undersell him because he could probably do hours long cast on how great this guy is with how much I love him, but he's really strong. That power action is just amazing. I don't even care about the second part. Just giving him 2 shields per round is great. So this guy, I openly admit on Obi-Wan that I didn't get it at first. And it wasn't just because I know that in the cast I said the whole thing about him about the 4 dice start, and I missed that. And like, that's not important. I think what I missed about him is also kind of what I didn't miss, if that makes sense, in that he has Guardian and the 10 health. But yeah, this whole guy is a giant butt, right? Because I think you end up playing him as a 9, right? Because if you're playing him, you're playing him with Luke, so you can play him as 8. Like, this guy's amazing at 8 with the 10 health with the Guardian. So he activates into Guardian, and the action, right? So it's not an activate; it's a separate action. Spot another blue character, move a dice showing damage. Okay, no problem. Defeat this character, and if he's elite, move up to 3 dice, right? So what's really cool about this is even first round, right? Because most people have 4 dice first round, right? So if you can catch them in some weird situation where they roll in, they have a dice showing damage, you could, in theory, just kill him and just time walk round 1 for them, which is back-breaking to say the least, right? The kind of the thing with him, though, is like, to really maximize the value out of him, well, first off, to do that, you have to play him elite, which in of itself is kind of a problem, because I think with the Luke deck, I think you're playing him at 9, because like, you don't really want to play a single die Luke, because then you only get a single die big Luke, right? So, and that's kind of the conundrum this guy is like. This guy becomes really amazing at elite, because he could just like time walk. Like, I mean, think about it, even like Guardian in, then do it, like, that's a 5 die removal effective because he's not dead, right? So I guess that's where I'm kind of going with this guy, is like, where he really starts to sing is like end round 2, beginning round 3, sucking some stuff up and then killing himself. But I don't think it, like, at that point does it matter, right? So like, I think more often than not you want to use him first round. That's just kind of where my head is for him. Then going into, of course, what he flips into, which it's 1 with the Force. Let's just call it 1 with the Force. Let's be honest here, right? What I did see, again, another thing I kind of missed yesterday, I mean, it wasn't critical, but this doesn't have a point cost, right? Which means that you can't start with it in play. You have to have Obi-Wan in play to get it, I think it's perfectly fine. I've seen a lot of people on the Facebook board specifically ask, why does this have a resource cost? The answer is very clear. It's desperate measures, right? If someone's going to blow this sucker up, they better take something to the face for it. And yes, there's a whole argument of you shouldn't be able to DM it and whatever, but it's just the way it works, right? So it's worth 4, which was what the original one was worth. That's why they put it there. It'll take 4 to the face if you DM it, which is probably still worth it, because the other thing I missed yesterday, because I was so obsessed with the flipping and all that, Look at the power action on this sucker. Give a blue character 1 shield and reroll any number of its character and upgrade dice. That is a power action, but still, that's pretty good, right? So this thing comes out with a die. It's a non-activation specific power action, so it can just happen regardless of where it's at. This guy's, I mean, this is really good, right? So, and that kind of goes into what I was talking about with Obi earlier, right? Is like, to maximize him, you want to kill him late, but you kind of want this out early. Either way, we'll go ahead and go back, right? But like, I think Obi's real good. What's also note here is the elite part of Obi only helps the other 3 die for the defeat, which is not insignificant. I grant you that, but it doesn't affect his one with the Force, his spirit. It doesn't affect his spirit, which a lot of the flip cards we've seen, the flip side matters whether it was elite or not, and it doesn't in this case, right? So you play him with 9, you still get the Force Ghost, right? Which is big. All right, so going into Sweeper Droid Infiltration. So this is another miss I had, right? And let's actually skip forward to talk about the miss, and we'll go back. So what I had said yesterday was play a non-event card from your hand, or my question yesterday was, what it says is, if 2 or more bomb plots are in play, you may set them aside and deal 4 indirect. And I was like, well, how do you get multiple bomb plots in play? The answer is because I wasn't paying attention, and if you run this elite, you get 2 of these plots. So, yeah, right, if you run this after setup, it's elite and an additional copy of a chimp. So you get 2 plots, which that's cool, right? But action, play an event from your hand to reroll a die, then flip the plot. Okay, that in itself is fine. Action. And then it flips into the demo droid. Action, play a non-event from your hand to deal 1 indirect to an opponent. That's cool. And then you can get the thing where you remove them for 4 indirect. But I don't think this one's very good, because I don't think you play it elite, right? Like, how many times have you been deck building and you're like, oh, I only have 25 points. I could really use a 5-point plot. Especially since last set when Jawa Junk Dealer came out, like, if you're in need of 5 points, like, if you really find yourself in a situation where you're in desperate need of 5 points, aren't you just playing the Jawa Junk Dealer and basically making resource around? I mean, yes, right? I think so. And even so, if you value this out, like, action. So to be clear, in defense of this plot, right, these are all actions, right? So you can action, play an event, and flip it. And then you can action, play a non-event to deal 1 indirect. The problem is, if you have, like I was saying, if you have 2 of these in play, are you really playing consistently 2 non-events per round to make this worthwhile? I think most of us can play, I mean, not most, but I think we could consistently play 2 non-events, but 2 events, but to play 2 non-events per round, I think is a hard ask. So that's what I'm saying. I think this plot actually works better single. Because again, at that 5 points, I'm not convinced that, I mean, what it would be, 1, you could potentially, because it is a May, you don't have to blow it up, or you don't have to blow it and the other plots up, right? So you're playing at elite is potentially 6+, right? So let's say 6+ indirect, but like, I don't know that 5 points is worth 6 indirect, right? Like, I think I'd rather, again, like I said, have the Jawa Dunk Dealer, right? So yeah. Anyway, all right. So this one kicks off. So I had a lot of these guys right yesterday, but I didn't quite get it. And I want to give a huge shout out to Dice Commando team for helping me kind of conceptualize a lot of the broken stuff with the clones. Because yesterday I was pretty down on the clones, which was kind of a bummer for me, because you guys know I like clones, right? These guys are pretty good. So, I mean, let's start off with Son of the Troopers, right? Which I am still down on. I am still down on the Troopers, or Son of the Troopers. If you control the battlefield and 5 or more dice in your pool are showing damage, force an opponent to name a character, then flip this plot, not name the character, make delete. Whatever. How often are you going to have 5 dice in your pool showing damage when you already haven't won the game? Like, this one bums me out. What it flips into with the characters who have point values, who again can be played on their own, awesome, right? But let's go into and just some, well, let's go into the guys before we start making the comments on that, right? So let's start with Echo. After you activate this character, if it's elite, you may roll a character die on a character in its controller's pool. If you control the battlefield, you may roll a character die on a character into its controller's pool. All right, so the elite thing triggers first, then his normal ability, right? So let's actually go into the rules for this guy before we go into the comments, right? So transformation rules notes. Do note this is all one thing. So his entire text happens after the activation. They're not separate sentences. The die rolls, well, yeah, and then this is the next part. So I've seen some people online basically like, oh my god, this guy is broken AF because I can roll in my opponent's die. True, you can, but it very clearly on him says into its controller's pool, which means that if you use him to roll in your opponent's die, it's still their die, right? It's not like you're rolling their die into your pool for you to resolve, because remember, you can only, that's the definition of Destiny, you can only resolve die in your pool. So you're rolling that die into their pool, it's their die, right? They can interact with it, they can resolve it, they can do whatever. So you don't want to do that with Echo, right? And the other thing, so kind of speaking back to the plot, right? Echo, really the only reason to run him, I think, is if you're running him with like a big. And at 811 is kind of where you want to run to get maximum value. But remember, you're rolling that die in, right? So that means it's not on the character, right? So if you roll those die in and then you activate the character, they don't have any die to roll in. It's not like they generate more dice, right? Echo's not generating a copy of the die. He's actually rolling that die in. So I think you kind of run into, I mean, most of us who've played Admiral or resets, well, Admiral resets, have kind of run into the same situation where you're suboptimally resolving die, I guess is the term there, to just get the die out of the pool to get value out of them before you roll in. Because you are, you roll in your guy, maybe spend a card, pitch to reroll, now you're down, and it's just, you're trying to do what you can to get value out of it because you don't want to waste things, which is the right move. But like if you're almost causing that on your own per turn with no advantage, I think you run into the risk of, you just run the risk of making a lot of suboptimal plays. And for 11 points of your team to do that, I think that's bad. And that's why I think if you're going to run the plot, and that's kind of where I was going, if you're going to run the plot, I think Echo is generally the better call there. The problem statement with that is A, you have to have another red character on your team to get the red plot. B, it's 4 points, and generally your opponent's going to know that it's Echo, especially if you're running with a big, and they're just going to call Echo because they don't want you to have lead Echo. And then you end up with single die Echo, and then you're rolling in one of your big, who may or may not be dead at that point. I mean, it's just, so I don't think Echo's, I don't think Echo's good, right? Which is too bad because I like Echo. I like Echo in fives a lot, but I mean as characters, but I don't like Echo here. But we do go into fives who, like I said yesterday, I liked him a lot, but I did not understand. I just didn't get it, right? So in the last 24 hours, huge shout out to Bassmaster on DC Team. He's the one who walked me through the combo, and it is a combo, right? So let's read him. After you activate this character, roll a clone trooper into your pool or tune if he's elite, right? So basically, he comes in. He's him in of himself, he's basically akin to a Death Trooper. He's actually a little better than Death Trooper, except the fact you can't run, wide of him. But he has 9 points for 811. The 2 indirect, I think, is better than the modified side. The base 2 is better than the 2 for 1, for sure, right? So no issues there. But then he has the additional thing of after a clone trooper die is rolled into your pool, you may re-roll it. If you control the battlefield, re-roll again, right? So going into just, again, the rules notes for the set, these two sentences are separate. Anytime you roll in a clone trooper die, you can do re-roll triggers, right? And that's any clone trooper die. So if you're playing him with whomever that rolls in clone trooper die, even that, what is the lat, right? If the lat for some reason is rolling it in, you get to re-roll, right? So that they are in it. It's not like Echo where it's a post trigger. These are all independent, right? So you can get multiple re-rolls anytime it comes in. Now, why that's important is this, and again, I want to thank Bassmaster for pointing this out, right? Arc Trooper 5s plus Fateful Companions. For one resource, right? So just these two with the plot, for one resource, you roll in 4 clone trooper dice. Right now, it takes you a couple actions to do it. You roll them in, pay, ready, roll them in, 4 clone trooper dice in the pool, each of which came in with at least, depending on battlefield control, 1 reroll. Right? You're playing them with Rex, maybe another clone trooper. But now, let's look at Faithful Companions. Costs $1 unless you spot R2 and 3PO. Is it possible to run 3PO and R2 with this guy? Very interesting. I wonder if it is. Next, we have through the pass. Do note that Fateful's a plot. Through the pass is an event. We have seen the Rex Han clone deck. Arc Trooper 5s fits right into that. It works. Yellow card, bring it to the table. We can do that. Now imagine if you could come up with some wonky deck where you could find an extra 2 points. You could do Fateful and Through the Pass. So this is, after hearing this combo, seeing, I mean, between the Anakin Vader thing that we already saw and then between this combo, I think it's fair to say that there may have been some lack of playtesting issues with this set. I think this is really good. One reason, and first off, I didn't quite explain this well enough, and it has to do with the order of triggers, right? So when you play Through the Pass, the card completes all the way through, right? So activate one of your characters as supports. Then you may spend resources equal to the number of dice you just rolled in to ready that character support, right? So you activate him, his after effect goes into the queue. Okay, so the number of dice you just rolled in is Goose Egg. You pay 0. You ready the guy. He activates and rolls in the 2, gets the re-rolls based on whatever your state is, and there you go. So for 1, you're potentially rolling in 4 dice. I mean, that is straight up the way it works on top of the re-rolls, right? So this is really good. Next one we have is Clone Commander Wolffe. After you activate this character, you may roll a Clone Trooper into your pool and activate one of your red characters. If this character is elite and you control the battlefield, spot any number of unique red characters to deal that much indirect damage to an opponent. He he reads the same as 5s, right? It's the same thing. So we go to this. Clone Commander Wolffe, Through the Pass, or Fateful Companions, and it should actually be an and/or, right, if we could pull it off, equals 2 Clone Trooper dice, 2 indirect plus, right? 2 plus indirect if you have others, right? He himself is the unique red that you can spot, so he deals 1 and then 1 when he rolls in. If you have others, he's generating more. Wolffe, 5s, Fateful, whatever you can. I'm like, there are some. I mean, maybe Fateful's not the right move. Whatever, mathematically with how the teams come up, but there's some real potential with these clones that I did not get straight up. I find it hard to believe that these weren't playtesting misses, because these seem, at least to me right now in the moment, these seem pretty busted to me. But I don't know, we'll see. Don't get me wrong, you guys know I love the clones, and it's great, but being able to do that over and over and over, I mean, especially, like, actually, to be fair, I may be answering my own question. How the heck am I getting 5 dice in my pool showing damage? Maybe this is the way we do it, right? So, alright, fair enough. Alright, let's move on. So, I'm really tired of having to cast about all the things I got wrong. So, this plot, I'm showing them side by side, right? So it's closing in, which is the plot, which then turns into captured. Where I got hung up on this one, right, is this right here. You can see my cursor. If this downgrade would leave play, set it aside instead. For some reason in my head yesterday when I was going through this, it became to me that when the downgrade was popped, meaning it was paid off, that it went away. And I was like, I don't understand why you would play that over by any means or whatever, because I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is a 2-point plot. Like, yes, there are ways that you could make it a 1 point by doing like a 3-way bounty team, but I don't think that that's ideal for what you're going for. So here's the setup with this, right? It's basically, in effect, kind of a post haste Kragan, right? If that's kind of the better way to say it, right? So you really just need to get a bounty down on somebody, deal some damage into them, you suck this on them. They have to give you a money, right? And this is not like the situation that we've seen in Destiny where you can choose to lose, right? They literally have to give you the dollars. Like, so they can't have, if they have 0, their guy's stuck, right? They have to give you the dollar to do it, right? So it is very conceivable that in this case, at like round 1, they play some. I mean, hopefully they're playing around it because they know what plot you start with, to be fair. But you could see round 1, sure, they have all their guys out, but you attach to their guy, which means round 2 starts, they can't activate their guy. In order to do it, they have to pay you. And then you could roll out, because this is giving you action advantage, right, while they're doing all this. You can roll out, say you roll out Boba, because he's on there, why not? I like him. Roll out Boba, you hit a damage. They pop it. It's ready because it's been the next round, right? Because remember, you have to exhaust it to attach, but it's ready because it's the next round. You can throw it on that guy again, they have to give you another money, and if they already spent that, they're screwed, right? So, long story short here, I really missed the boat on this one. This plot is amazing, right? I mean, obviously you have to play Bounty Hunters to do it. They're going to know it's coming. This plot's really good. So I definitely screwed the pooch on that yesterday, thinking that the other existing plots were better. This one's really, really good. Yeah, I mean, it's bringing everything that create like the Jango Boba deck. I mean, anybody is going to build around this, but like the Jango Boba deck's definitely using this, and you can play all sorts of crazy busted because that deck has a pretty high resource curve as it is with Jango and the bounties and Night Sister Lair, and like, let's just play some fives, let's play some sixes. Why the heck not? Like, you're making money. All right. Anyway, so just some rules notes though. I have heard this asked by more than one person, right? The way that the rules work says that for a double side, like, so this in itself isn't a bounty, which means that you could in theory play it in your deck, but it is a double-sided card, right? So the definition of any double-sided card says that if there's no point cost on the B side, you have to play the A side. So that means that this cannot go into your deck as normal. It has to be the plot. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's the rules work. So good design there. There's just no other way around it. All right, so Rescue Han Solo. A lot of excitement around this one, but a lot of people are actually getting this one wrong. A lot of people are interpreting this one as I have to play a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. That is not accurate, right? So if you read the card, it said play a card with your hand with cost equal to number of resources on the plot. Its cost cannot be decreased. Then place one resource on this plot, and if that's 5, flip it, right? So that means that you don't need to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need to play a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so, and then plus with a team up, so a lot of people have been talking about how am I going to get this done. Most people's teams are Lando because they want the money, which makes sense. But I do want to warn people, a lot of people's forecast cards are the Forecast Falcon from Legacies, which also makes sense because it's 4. But this is an action, which means that you cannot Lando power action and get it in, right? Because the action, power action, they each have to happen separately. And furthermore, you can't get the cost reduced anyway. But you cannot Lando power action in your 4-drop and get this, right? That's just not the way it works. So this, I still stick with that. I think this one's way too hard to pull off. But then we come into what is perhaps my biggest miss of yesterday altogether is Han Solo cool and competent, right? So this guy is amazing. And the important thing to note here is this right here on my cursor, he is a 10-13, which means that you can actually start with Han Solo in play. I'm pretty sure, I'll actually pretty much stake on it. Like, I think he's the best 13-point character that we've seen. I think so, anyway, right? So, also, I mean, don't forget he has piloting, right? So, like, look at this die in of itself. 2 resources, 2 gun sides, really big gun sides, and then 12 health. All for 13 points. Now, he does have a significant drawback in that when he's defeated, lose all your resources and your opponent gains that much. So if they can catch you off guard, they can somehow ambush you down, whatever, you could really be hurting there. And that was the issue yesterday is when I saw him, I was like, well, I mean, it's no joke that this guy's above curve. Like, it's very obvious he's above curve, but when I saw it yesterday, I was like, oh, okay, he's above curve, but you have to jump through like 9 hoops to get him in play. So I was like, okay, fine. But I missed that you can just start with him. Yeah, I mean, that's really all there is to say. Like, this guy's really good, and he comes with a big penalty, but I think unless you completely misplay around it, like, I mean, your success criteria can't be when he dies, my opponent gets no resources. Like, that's not reasonable. But starting with this guy, like, the value that you're going to get out of him the first couple rounds versus what they get when they kill him, and, like, do you really care? I mean, how many games do we play where your opponent ends with, like, 7 resources anyway these days? Like, it's actually more than you'd think. I don't think you necessarily care if you get the value out of this guy for a couple rounds. Like, this guy is crazy good. I still think Big Luke is better, but not by much. Like this guy's really good. And like I said, I completely missed this 1013, which means you can start with him. So that is a big deal. All right, going into the plot, choose your destiny. I was really excited about this yesterday, and I still am. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't really thinking about the handicap of having to limit yourself to 3 sets in Infinite, which, I mean, you're basically playing Trilogy. You're playing a selected Trilogy in Infinite, which I think is, I mean, that's not entirely accurate because you can bridge. Like, it's just 3 sets. It doesn't have to be within the same block, to be fair. So I shouldn't necessarily say Trilogy, but you're limiting yourself pretty significantly to do this. The flip side is, no, that pun, unintentional, but your dice cannot be turned by opponent. Once you flip it, your dice cannot be turned by opponents. Before the round ends, gain 1 resource. Like, that's pretty good. So I think, and especially with you only playing 3 sets in your Infinite deck, like I think you're pretty reasonably going to be able to flip it. So you're probably getting 1 to 2 free resources per game. And remember, the thing I was most excited about yesterday was that it was a -1 neutral gray, which I still think is really, really good. I do think that that's offset by the hamstringing yourself of the cards. But again, if I think in Infinite, I think it's going to be harder than you think to play cards from 3 different sets to flip it back. I mean, I get that it's different sets and they're going to be playing a lot of different sets. They have a lot of options, but I think it's going to be harder than you think to flip it back. Not impossible, like they're going to flip it back at some point, but I think you're going to get probably 1 to 2 resources out of this per game. So a -1 plot where you're getting, let's just say, at least 1 resources, because it happens before the round ends, right? So you're going to get at least 1 resource out of it at some point during the game, and it's still a -1. So is it worth the hamstringing? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but I don't think this is worthless. I think it's worth exploring. This one, so I kind of took a pass on this one yesterday. Um, I think this one is definitely worth talking about, and I think I kind of missed that yesterday too. So it is a solidarity style where you have to play only if each character on your team is the same color. But after an opponent moves 1 of your dice, roll it into your pool. Set this plot aside over its elite, flip it instead. I think you're only going to play this elite. I mean, it's only 1 point for elite. I get it. I mean, it's not bad at 0. Like, you could just toss it in. Like, why not? But and again, it's neutral gray. So like, if you're playing a 30-point team, I don't. Well, I mean, they have to be the same color to be fair. But like, if you're playing a 30-point team the same color, like you just throw it in. Like you just do. Like there's no reason not to. But then it goes to We Stand, which is after an opponent removes 1 of your character dice, spend 2 resources and discard 2 cards from your hand to ready that character. Set this plot aside. So that's what I couldn't quite get my head around yesterday. Was like, is this good? Is this not? I don't know. The thing is, looking at it, it's a may, right? So it's not a forced trigger. So it's not like the plot blows up if you don't use it, right? So you have to spend 2 resources and discard 2 to ready the character. My problem with it is not it's not the ready. It's not anything like that. It's, let's think about it, right? So you roll on average, which 1 hits, 1 doesn't. Somebody removes 1 of your die, or like maybe you've re-rolled at this point, so now you're already down a card. You've played something, you're down 2 cards. Now you have to discard 2 cards. You only have 1 card left in your hand for your reset. Like, how many times do you roll in, even on a Sans Palp where you have 19 million focus? How many times do you roll in and hit everything you need? Like, it's, yeah, I mean, I look at, to be clear, I'm not saying this is bad. I just, I think most of the time that you're rolling this guy in, even under best case scenario, you only have 1 card in hand. It's going to be real hard to maximize. I mean, but to be fair, this only costs you 1 build point and 2 resources and 2 cards, to be fair. But I just think that the 2 card, I mean, having the 2 resources available at the moment that your card is removed, I think, or your die is removed, excuse me, I think is big enough as it is. But the 2 discard is, I mean, the payoff's potentially big. So I think that the card itself is fine from a design standpoint. I just don't know how often it's going to win. But I don't know. All right. So this next one, so I do still stand by my original statements from yesterday regarding the strength of mill for this deck. That said, now that I've had a chance to digest it, I kind of Well, let's read through it, right? So after the upkeep phase begins, heal 1 damage from each character. Flip this card. So that's the part I missed yesterday, was to flip this card naturally. But claim, heal 1 damage from a character, you may flip this card, right? And then the flip side of the night side is after upkeep phase, deal 1 damage, flip this card. Claim, deal 1 damage to a character, and may flip this card. So I still think this is good for mill because, but not in the way I said yesterday, right? So what I was saying yesterday was basically for mill, you could sit back, make them claim early, which would then give you an advantage for like no answer and stuff like that, which you could still do. But really, if you play this right, you don't ever have to go through, I shouldn't say in the round, you don't ever have to go through an upkeep on a different day if you play this right. Because after the upkeep phase begins, heal 1 damage to your character. Okay, so end of round 1, I claim, well, end of round, so it's day. End of round, so it starts at day. End of round 1, it's day. We heal 1 damage from each character. The card gets flipped to night, right? But if I claim round 1, I can heal 1 damage from a character and then flip it to night, which then deals 1 damage and flips it to day, right? So what I'm saying is strategically you could keep this to where you want it, because on upkeep you don't have a choice. On claim you do have a choice, right? So that's what I'm saying is like, so round 1 you could claim early, choose to not flip the card. It would heal another 2 damage and then flip. And then round 2, what do? You just claim, flip the card, it heals, it flips, and so on and so on and so on, right? So you can potentially set up a situation, and granted there's some chess match and stuff in there, I mean, like every Battlefield claim is, but you can set up a situation where you don't ever get to night. Well, you don't ever hit upkeep on night, I guess is what I'm saying, right? So, I mean, it is what it is. It's interesting, but I think it does still favor mill, not necessarily in the way that I said yesterday. I think mill now has to be a little faster. But aren't you willing to be a little faster if you can effectively heal all that from your people? Where I've been struggling with a little more, like, I'll be honest, my head originally went to Ewoks. I was like, oh man, dealing damage, like that's what Ewoks wants. But then Ewoks is taking way more damage than the opponent is. Then do you care? So there's all that back and forth. In retrospect, I don't think necessarily this is like a good Ewok battlefield. But I mean, somebody could definitely figure out like a damage way to do it. Do note that it's not an act of cruelty in that it's not indirect, or it's not unblockable, I mean. So you do have that concern on the table for it. But I think this is a kind of a cool battlefield. I just think that it's too easy to get way, like, I think the reason that the ceiling on this is so high is because the idea is that you have a ceiling and then a floor and then a ceiling and a floor. But I think that with the way this is designed, you can stay at the ceiling. That's at least the way that I'm seeing it, because your opponent may not necessarily want to be taking the damage either, right? So anyway, those are just my thoughts. So all right, so that is it. Let's go back to let's go back to this one, right? The fives combo thing, I'll be honest, has me a little concerned overall. I kind of think that somebody's probably gonna fix this. It just doesn't feel right to me, and the Fateful Companions thing's not as big of a deal as just, I don't know. It just feels wrong, and I mean maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was part of the design, but he feels at 9 health. It feels like they didn't want it. Like if he had 8 health and he was consistent with that, then like maybe I'd be on board with this combo. But him being a little better and rolling in with the rerolls with the super activation, it just doesn't feel right. So, and I mean, and basically everything I've said for fives holds for Wolffe as well, right? I mean, this the same combos there. So it just doesn't feel right with the clones, but we'll see. So let's go back to who, like I said, I think the best character in the set is Luke. There's a lot of, well, I mean, I haven't come up with that many combos on it, but he feels really good, right? So, Big Luke feels really good. Yeah, so that's my win. So we'll go ahead and leave him up while I finish the chat. So it's really fantastic. It really is that we got this set. I mean, the like I from a Machiavellian standpoint, I really don't understand why FFG did it for us. Please don't take that as a complaint in any way. Like that's not the point. I do feel like the set was under tested. And there's been a lot of arguments. Because I asked that question on Facebook. I was like, doesn't it feel like this was maybe our World's Prize? And I do kind of think that because early on, even before COVID hit, they were kind of promising there was going to be a big surprise for their loyal people at Worlds, and that could have been just lip service. I don't know, but they kind of hinted at that. So like, I kind of wonder if this wasn't going to be our World's Prizes. So like, I'm wondering if like they don't have these cards printed somewhere, and they're going to be our World's Prizes whenever that happens, if it ever happens, right? Which would be pretty amazing. Because I think there was a subset, kind of myself included, who thought that maybe with the Wild Horizons announcement, that maybe those who went to Worlds were going to get a set of Wild Horizons, or at least be able to draft or see it in some form or something like that, right? Because I mean, Wild Horizons fits into the same arguments. Like they already announced they killed the game, but they said they're going to do this other set. And we had Mike and I had talked before on the cast, like, well, the only reason they'd be doing this is maybe they already have it printed, or they've already paid for it, and they're still trying to get some money out of it, which is why they're doing the tournament thing. And maybe that's why they released this instead of releasing like Wild Horizons, because they do still have an investment in it and want to get it out. I mean, I'm just spitballing at this point. I don't know. But coming back to my argument of like, this set is like, I'm super happy this set came. Like, it's fantastic. I don't really know where it came from. Like, I don't know why they were doing it. And some people answer like, well, they've done print and play stuff for Legion. They've done print and play. Well, it was for X-Wing, and I think they did like a solo mode thing for Legion, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Maybe that was an independent contributor. But someone said, well, they've done print and play stuff for other stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, but those are games that are like actively selling product right now. So like, again, the Machiavellian person is like, I don't really understand why they're putting any effort into this at all. And granted, they never put up an article. Like, they didn't throw any PR into this. They just like put it up. So again, it just stinks to me of like, this was something that was already in the pipeline. And if you really want the Andrew conspiracy theory on this, I think we're being used as like pseudo alpha testers for a Dice Duel System 2.0. Like, they're trying to, like, they want to release, like, they've already paid for Wild Horizon, they're going to release it and see what breaks. They release these things and see what the crazy people can do with it. And then they'll build that into, Dice Duel 2.0, the LCG, or whatever it may be coming. That's kind of my conspiracy theory. I kind of hope that, because like, I'd love to see a Star Wars LCG. I think the next Star Wars game is probably going to be a co-op like Marvel. But anyway, I'm going down the rat hole at this point. But again, it's super awesome we have this. So the one thing that does bother me, and I want to disclaimer this with, Mike and I had talked in the Wayback Machine about potentially reprinting new cards with existing dice like that. I mean, that's something we talked about many moons ago, right? And there's been a pretty vocal contingent of a small minority of people. It's actually largely one person who's been harassing the continuing committee about only doing reused dice. My one concern is that this kind of gives them the shot in the arm they need to kind of restart that fight, which is unfortunate, because I totally get from through some of the set designs stuff that I've done on my own, or just playing around just for my locals trying to do stuff, like it is exceedingly hard to try and develop new stuff using existing dice, because you also have abilities and stuff that need to factor into that. And math and value is a thing, right? There's more to it than just convenience, unless you just want to make it convenient, but then you're limited in design space and all that. So I mean, that is one thing that concerns me. We've been able to come up with a lot of, even just the 24 hours has happened, we've been able to come up with quite a bit of busted stuff already. So hopefully there's not more. I mean, I'm sure there are once the smart people go to work, we're going to find some crazy combos. But so anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. What are you thinking about the set? I mean, obviously we're all loving the new stuff, but let me know what you're thinking about it. Whether combos have you found that we should worry about or we should nip in the bud? But yeah, just let me know. So again, thank you very much for joining me in what was a long episode. We were just hanging out and chatting. I very much appreciate it. If nothing else, go Commando.